Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Stacey if you're new here, and today's video is going to be my March book wrap up, and we're doing this a lot more informal. I'm not doing my makeup, getting ready. I just want to talk about books. And also I got this e-reader. It is a Boox, B-O-O-X, Boox, I don't know, Android based e-ink e-reader, and previously I was using a Kindle Fire tablet, which I got in like 2024, and it was working great, but I decided I wanted e-ink because it works so much better in the sun, and yeah, I got a ton of use out of it. So let's start with that. We'll review this a little bit more, and then we'll get into the books I read in March. This is their Go 7 color. You can kind of, well, actually this picture right here is not in color. That's just the wake up. And then my home screen, you can see some of the color. The color is not extremely vibrant, and that's okay. I didn't get it for the color specifically. I just got it because I can. What I love about it is the e-ink features. I very much missed that when I was reading on my Amazon Fire tablet, which was still good, still helpful, but in the sun, it just didn't do well. And I love to read I love to read outside, and that was one thing I was missing. If I were to read my book outside, I would have to make sure I plan ahead and have the brightness turned up before I actually exit an indoor room, because I cannot see the screen at all because I'll have the brightness super duper low for like nighttime reading, and then I had like, you know, the blue light turned off and, you know, all that. But I still struggled with daytime reading or outside reading in the sun, and I also couldn't wear sunglasses, and hopefully it doesn't pick up on camera. Side note, I have the window open just a teeny tiny crack, and I live on a road that has a lot of traffic, so hopefully it doesn't pick up a ton of traffic noise. If it does, it is what it is. But anyway, back to the e-reader. So I love that it has buttons, because sometimes if I'm laying on my side and I'm like holding it like this, reading, I can just press the button to change the page. Majority of the time though, I am immersive reading, whether it be an audiobook and reading at the same time, or the assistive reader on the Kindle app, where it kind of highlights the words and it changes the pages as you go, like as it reads through. So I'm listening and reading at the same time. That's my favorite way to read. So another thing I like to do is connect headphones to this so that I can do that. I like actually using my Shocks headphones, which I got for running, but that's a bonus feature of those. My Shocks headphones, the bone conducting ones that like sit right here. You probably had seen in my you'll see in my next week of workouts, which will be posted this Wednesday. So another couple of things that I love about it is the ability to have the different apps. I started my reading journey with the Barnes & Noble Nook, and I went through 3 different ones of those. I actually broke the first 2 different ways. I don't know how. I mean, I do know how, but my fault, and I ended up repurchasing it. So all of the books I had purchased were on that. I didn't want to lose access to using those books, reading those books, even though I don't always reference it because I'm able to get a library book of whatever books I'm reading, and I can basically read it for free anyway because I'm able to get the library books even if I own it, which is really cool. However, if I can't get the library book that fast, then I always have the option of reading it through the Barnes & Noble app. And then any of the library books I just send to the Kindle app just because I like the assistive reader feature, or if I own the audiobook already, I can listen and read at the same time basically, and it'll highlight the text as it reads through. I have 2 major complaints about this device in particular, and I think it's partially because of how I personally use it. The battery life is extremely bad. Like if I am reading all day long, the battery's done. However, I think that is partially due to how I read, the immersive reading. It's playing audio and reading, and I have it set so that every time a page turns, it refreshes the page. But I have gone through a ton of settings to make sure. That's another thing. It's not super intuitive. I had to play around with a bunch of settings to help with the battery life and basically turn off all background refresh and all of that just so that it makes it worthwhile, so that the battery life basically lasts. So on my cruise, literally last week, this is when I read majority of my books for the month of March, I just carried around a battery bank with me so that I can charge it when I needed to, when the battery was low, and that worked out. So for that type of thing, the battery life kind of sucks, but if I'm just reading around the house, like, it's really not that big a deal. I can pay attention to it, plug it in at various intervals. When I'm reading in the afternoon, I notice it is dying. I plug it in while I go eat dinner, and it charges really fast. So it's not the worst thing. I think having the e-ink features absolutely outweighs the poor battery life. And I know that it's because of how I personally use it. I have not tested it in a way where I am not using audio at all. And it's also connected to Bluetooth a lot of times because I'm listening through my Shokz headphones. So that's another thing that makes a difference, is connected to Bluetooth, also listening to audio and reading at the same time. I know the Kindle and even my Nook, even the Fire tablet, all had days, weeks maybe, of battery life, but this is just a different type of device. It's not for everybody. If you don't want to learn how to play with settings, if you don't want to take the time to figure out the settings because you have to do it for each individual app. It took me a while, but that was like a one-time thing, and I am happy that I did it. And I am so happy with this purchase because being able to read in the sun without having to adjust any brightness settings, I could literally leave it on my nighttime brightness, and during the day, it's perfect, like in the sun. I tested it extensively on my last cruise. I read literally 3 whole books almost in my last cruise. No, 4. Almost 4. No, it was technically 2 full books. And then I started a book before, finished it during, read 2 books during the whole cruise, started another book, and finished it just after the cruise, I think. Something like that. So that is where I'm at on my review of the Boox. It's like Go 7 Color, Go Color 7. They call it a tablet, I think. I'll put the full name of the device on the screen. And yeah, so I am super happy with it. I just bought it on Amazon and it shipped quickly. There's also an option to get a stylus to like annotate and take notes, but it was like $50, and I just don't see myself utilizing it in that way. If you don't know, I'm a Dream Vacations travel advisor specializing in cruises and Disney parks, and I now have the option on my website for you to book a video chat with me instead of trying to go back and forth through email to get all of the details of your trip worked out and get it booked. We can do it via video chat instead of through email, almost like we are face-to-face in person, but virtually. I also offer a new service called Video Vacation Memories, where I take all of your photos and videos from your vacation and I make a 5 or 10 minute video memory of your trip. And all of this information will be linked in my description box below. I also have another channel that I post all of my travels and also will be linked in the description box below. On to the books that I read in the month of March. Like I said, majority of my books that I read were towards the end of the month. So I started off the month of March reading the 4th book of the Inheritance games, and I was about 50% in, I think, before I quit it before I stopped reading it because I was just not into it as much as I wanted to. And I think it's a good book. I just had already read the first 3. I think I needed a break from that story and also YA. And so I ended up switching over to Crescent City, which is a reread for me. However, I read it 2 years ago, I think. I don't remember when I read it, but it was a while. So I switched over to that, started it, and I own the audiobook, and that was the primary. Oh, now it is raining, so if you can hear that, it's raining. It's been kind of raining on and off all day. But the primary way I read this book was via audio, and so the first time. And so this time around, I did the immersive reading, and I loved that experience so much more. So I started this book before my cruise. I think I finished it just before the cruise. Yeah, I finished it like Wednesday before I left on Friday. And then after that, I began Crescent City 2, so the House of Sky and Breath. And then I finished that during the cruise. And so I love Crescent City. I'm not going to go into a ton of details here because I didn't really make any notes or anything, but spoilers. So if you haven't read Crescent City, go to this point in the video if you don't want spoilers. I just love the world, the cross between technology and modern stuff that we know in our everyday life, mixed with magic and different fae and shapeshifters and vampires and angels and all of the different species that they have in Crescent City. And of course they have their politics, as every fantasy is going to. And I loved the crossover with ACOTAR. I do recall at the end of House of Sky and Breath that I felt underwhelmed with how the crossover happened, but I don't quite remember why. And I did begin the 3rd book on Sunday. It was my travel day home, and I'm only a quarter, maybe 40% through. I'm not very far. So the 3rd book will be in my April wrap up. I don't remember why I felt like it was underwhelming, because the parts that I have read so far of the 3rd book, I'm like, oh, this is nice. We're really getting into some more lore and background and learning more about the world and the overall universe that Sarah J. Maas has created and how they're kind of connected. And I'm finding that a lot more fun, and I don't remember why I was so underwhelmed. I thought maybe it would be more prominent, but there's literally nothing wrong with how it is, and I'm loving it. The other 2 books that I read during my cruise was Happy Place by Emily Henry and then Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. Of the 2, I liked Happy Place a lot better. I really liked the story, and it was kind of funny because my friend and I were just talking about our friend group, the friend that went with me on the cruise, and she was reading this book too. So we were talking about kind of our friend group and just how, as adults, life changes, people evolve, and it was a really relevant thing we were talking about that literally was the plot of this book for the most part. Yeah, for the most part. So if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend. It was a fun, summery-ish. Well, actually, I don't think it took place in the summer, but it was a fun read while we were on the cruise ship. And then the other book that I read was Problematic Summer Romance, which takes place in the same universe as Not in Love, which I do remember liking, but I didn't remember literally any of it, hardly. And this one was okay. I have actually really, really liked all of Ali Hazelwood's books in the past. However, this one, it was fine. It was a age gap thing that was kind of weird, for the sole fact that they knew each other when she was a there had been this kind of connection ever since. And that was just kind of weird. So, I mean, they reconnected when she was like 25 or 24. I don't know. She was in her 20s, mid-20s, something like that. And I guess that's fine in terms of the age gap. I just don't, I'm not a big fan of the age gap thing, especially in this case where the first time they met was when she was a teenager. That's just a little strange, a little too much for me. So that book was okay. And I finished pretty much all of those books in the last 2 weeks of March. Because my first half was, I started it was a Hawthorne Legacy. No, what was it called? It was the 4th book in the Hidden Inheritance games, which is called The Brothers Hawthorne, which was still really good, and I do plan on returning to it. It's just not something I want to read. I just needed a break from, and I was excited to reread Crescent City. And my friend had said that she started it, so that was perfect timing because I was thinking about rereading Crescent City sometime soon anyway, because I remember like big moments of it, and a lot of it I didn't remember as much, so it was a lot of fun to go back and read immersively. So that's where I'm at. And I am so happy I did that. And then for this month, I honestly don't think that I don't have any set like books that I want to read. I'm going to finish Crescent City, and then I think that, I'm not sure. I have some books on hold at the library that I might read, or I might save them for my next cruise, which is at the end of April, so that I can have some summary books to read. But that cruise is going to be a lot less reading than my last cruise in March. So I may not need to have as many books planned, but for sure the end I'm going to finish Crescent City. I think at some point this year I'm going to reread all of the Shadowhunters books, which is a lot of books. ACOTAR, which probably more towards the end of the year into maybe January, when the next 2 books will already be released and I won't have to wait for as long. So yeah, another book I have on like that I want to read soon is Abby Jimenez, Say You'll Remember Me, and then the new book that was just released I have on hold. I can't remember what it's called. I have on hold, so maybe those ones in April. I don't know. I'll just kind of see how I feel. I do have this book called The Frequency of Him by, I don't know, I can't see who the author is. This is what the colors look like. They're very muted, not very vibrant, but it gets the point across. I understand, what books they are. But anyway, that one I have downloaded from Kindle Unlimited already, so maybe that one, I don't know. I haven't really thought that far ahead. Just to finish Crescent City and maybe check on whatever holds I have on my Libby. That is gonna conclude this video. This is the March book wrap up, and as of right now, I have read a total of 12 books for the month, or for 2026, which is about 4 books a month, which honestly, that is kind of my goal, to average roughly 3 to 4 books a month. But I'm not set on it. I will read more some days, some weeks, some months more than others, depending on what all I have doing, which is why majority of my books in March were during my cruise, because I planned to sit in the sun and read a good chunk of that cruise, which was amazing, and I was able to put this to the test in the sun, and I'm so happy with that purchase. That's going to conclude this video. I'm going to stop yapping before it gets way too long, and yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to work with me and plan your dream vacation, all that information will be linked in the description box below. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.